Okay.
All right, turn on. Okay. I'm gonna start then. Okay. 你告诉我什么时候开始吧。
好，那个 pretty soon。
Okay. I'm gonna start then. Okay. 你告诉我什么时候开始吧。
好，
然后，
好，那个 pretty soon。
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna start then. Okay. 你告诉我什么时候开始。
OK， 你现在可以开始了。
OK，
那个 pretty soon。
Okay.
很多杂音啊，很多杂音。
mute 好不好 ？Please mute yourself。可以了。OK。首先谢谢大家来参加今天的自由谈节目。非常开心的看到你们。首先呢，我要在这边谢谢我们上个月的自由谈节目，葛幼梅给我们谈谈那个回台湾意外的就医经验。从她的经验里面，我们也可以学到一些在台湾就医跟在美国就医的不同地方。还有我们也在这里祝福葛幼梅一切顺利，更健康。今天我要为大家介绍的自由谈节目里面，请到我的一个美国的朋友 Michael 来给我们谈谈我们自由谈的，不是谈谈我们那个 Master Save 的 detail。Master Save 的 program 呢，其实它就是一个州政府提供我们的给我们的屋主还有租房子的房客一个有福利还有服务的一个 program。待会儿我会请 Michael 给我们 go over the detail。 OK， Michael, please, all yours, take over and start it. I can't hear you. 我听不到 Michael 讲话。
All right, can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear now.
I'm going to share the screen. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, good. Hello, everyone. My name's Mike. I have been with Mass Save for 10 years. Mass Save is, well, I'll go over this slideshow. Okay, Mass Save is it's a utility run program. It's the state energy efficiency program. And basically every 3 years, Massachusetts approves this program that's set forth by the utilities. It's designed to increase energy efficiency in residential, commercial, and multifamily buildings. And if you...
I cannot hear you.
Can you not hear me?
I don't have a problem. I hear it very perfectly.
Okay. Judy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
因为我们听不到了。
No, it's very clear.
Pretty clear here.
Okay.
Yes, we heard you.
Okay, good. I will keep going then.
I cannot hear you.
Check your speaker.
Yeah, let me see.
I can hear okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. Very clear.
Very clear. Check your speaker. You may be muting it.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
might
因为我们
be
听不到。I
that-
cannot hear it.
I can hear。 王宇，
chat.
你听不到吗？
听到了，听到了。OK，
Am I
听到
good?
了。Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no worries. Okay, good. Let me- Okay. Yeah, so the Mass Save program, it's basically everybody in the state is eligible for the program. If you have any of these utilities listed at the bottom here, most people are going to have Eversource or National Grid, especially in the Boston area, either for gas or electric. So yeah, you'd be eligible for assessments, rebates, all of that sort of thing. If you have one of these utilities. The only people in the state that wouldn't be eligible is if you live in a municipal electric town and you don't heat with gas. So for example, Belmont is municipal electric. So if you live in Belmont and if you heat with oil, you wouldn't be eligible for the Mass Save program. Typically, towns have their own energy efficiency program. So you're still eligible for some sort of rebates and that sort of thing if you live in one of those towns. But realistically, 95% plus of homeowners in the state are eligible for the Mass Save program. And the program is funded by the utilities. Technically, it's funded by the bill payer. So the homeowners, tenants, anybody who pays a gas or electric bill. If you look at your bill, this circled in red, this is Eversource and a National Grid bill. This is what you're paying towards the Mass Save program. So if you're eligible for the program, if you're paying towards it, you should definitely take advantage of it because, there's a lot of incentives available and it's mostly funded by the bill payer. So, yeah, so that's that. I'll show this slide later as well. But there's kind of 3 steps to the program. The first step is to schedule an energy assessment. I'll go over what the energy assessment entails in a little bit, but basically schedule the energy assessment. The energy auditor will visit the house or the building and make recommendations based on what they find and what the program has available for incentives. And then you can kind of decide after that what incentives you want to take advantage of, what updates you want to do, if any. And I'll go over all the different kind of incentives that are available as well. And if any of you have ever had a Mass Save energy assessment before, they're a lot different, or I guess they've changed a lot over the past, this program has been around for 30 years or so, and they've changed quite a bit. They kind of started out as just like a site visit, and then they evolved into like changing light bulbs, and they used to take 2 to 3 hours, up until about 4 or 5 years ago. It would have been like a 2 to 3 hour visit, but nowadays they only take about 20 to 40 minutes. We don't change light bulbs anymore. That's one thing that I think most people knew about us. That's kind of the most popular thing that people say about us, but we don't even change light bulbs anymore. There are like discounted light bulbs if you wanted light bulbs on the Mass Save website. But really the biggest thing that we do is the 20 to 40 minute assessment, and that gives us an idea of what to recommend for like heating, cooling, hot water upgrades, and also insulation upgrades. Those are kind of the 2 biggest things. There's also rebates for appliances and windows and that sort of thing too. So and then there's also the option for like virtual assessment if you're just looking for like a small rebate on like a heating system or something like that, or if you want the full comprehensive assessment, you can get an in-person assessment. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as we go, and I will, I can answer them and go through them individually, or you can save your questions till the end as well. So, yeah, so yeah, sorry, I got two screens going here. Like I said, we don't do light bulbs anymore, but we still give out like power strips, thermostat, depending on what type of thermostat you have now, and shower heads, aerators for sinks. So there are still some free energy saving items that we give away, but not light bulbs. And then, like I said, there's rebates for upgrading equipment. There's also 0% interest loan. So if you do have to replace a furnace or a boiler, or if you want to install a heat pump or something like that, you can finance the cost of that as well as apply for the rebates on that. So I'll go over the loan as well. And then the 75 to 100% incentive for weatherization, that's going to be insulation. So I'll go over a little bit more about the weatherization and insulation, but the single family owner occupied homes are eligible for a 75% incentive towards insulation. But if you have a rental property or if you live in a multifamily building, the insulation is free through the program if your house needs insulation. So there's some more info on what we do give out. Power strips. This is during the energy assessment. They typically give these out. Sometimes they'll ship them to your house, depending on if it's a virtual assessment or depending if the energy auditor doesn't have anything in stock, that sort of thing. But yeah, these are given out for free, and the power strips. I mean, I won't explain the energy savings through each of them, but that's something that if you do schedule an energy assessment, the energy auditor will go over with you. Okay, so yeah, like I said, one of the big things that we do through the program is weatherization, and it's covered either 75% for single family homes, owner occupied, or 100% for rental properties in multi-unit buildings. So it's going to be, weatherization is just kind of a general term for making your house kind of more resistant to the weather. So insulation is the biggest thing, but also air sealing, small gaps like around doors, anywhere in like the attic floor, they seal gaps. And then also like if you have ductwork, HVAC in your attic, they'll seal up the gaps in the attic ductwork to make the ductwork less leaky. And again, the incentives, so the duct sealing and the air sealing are actually free. And then I listed here as well the different insulation incentives. So and there I do have like some example kind of what to expect in terms of like cost if you wanted to like insulate an attic of your single family home, that sort of thing, a few slides later. But yeah, just keep in mind, really it's hugely beneficial for rental properties and multifamily buildings because the insulation work is free. Basically, once the work is complete, the utilities will pay the contractor in full for the insulation work that was done. So, if you're a homeowner, with a rental property or in a multifamily building, you can save a lot by insulating, and it's free. So and then to kind of explain a little bit more about how the house is weatherized, air sealing is sealing up all the little gaps, like I mentioned. This is a photo of the attic floor right here. You can see this is expandable foam. They seal up all the gaps with the expandable foam. And by the way, we have a list of insulation contractors that we work with to do the insulation work. So you can kind of choose from that list. There's 150 or so independent contractors that are able to do all the insulation work. But anyways, this is a basement perimeter that's been sealed up and with expandable foam as well. And then this area right here is the insulation on an attic floor. Those black lines are actually from dust. It's not mold or anything. It's when the house is leaky, you get airflow, and typically in that air, you get dust that catches and collects on that yellow fiberglass that's right there. So a lot of times you'll see, if you have any like pink fiberglass or yellow fiberglass, you'll see lines like this. And that's usually an indication that there's some leakage within the the attic floor or along the basement perimeter or wherever you have this fiberglass. So that's an indication that the house can be sealed up tighter. And another thing they do for the air sealing work typically is they actually test the house to see how tight it is before they do the work, and then they air seal the house, they insulate, and then they test it again. They do what's called a blower door test, where they put a big fan in the front door and measure that. So you can actually get a number on how tight your house is when they do any of the weatherization work by that blower door test that they do. This is a photo of an exterior wall, and this is actually an infrared photo. So typically, if the weather allows, we do infrared scans. So if it's really cold out or if it's really warm out, and the temperature inside is 20 degrees different than the temperature outside, we can do the infrared scan and see if there's anything in the walls. Also during the assessment, we also can check behind an outlet or something like that to see if there's insulation in the wall, like especially if the infrared scan won't work because of the weather. If it's 68 degrees inside and it's 68 degrees outside, that nothing's going to show up on the infrared scan. So it's only reliable when it's, like I said, really warm out or really cold out, and then the house is around room temperature. But this is in this photo, you can see the studs, and then the cavity between the studs is colder in this case. And then on the right, after the walls have been insulated, you can see that cavity between the studs is actually, it's warmer, or actually in this case, yeah. The cavity itself is not warmer, but it's warmer relative to the studs is the important thing. And yeah, that's, like I said, one of the ways that we check walls. And these are some photos about how areas of the house are insulated. So typically attic areas, that top left corner, in an attic, they can blow insulation. Sometimes they do use the pink or yellow fiberglass, but in most cases, they use blown insulation. And they bring an attic floor up to about 15 inches. That's the recommended depth of insulation for our climate. So on the top right, that's a pull down for an attic access. You know, they can build a cover for that, or if it's just like a door with a walk up or like a hatch access, they put foam board on the attic access. They also put like weather stripping around the attic access to make it airtight, because that tends to be a leaky section in the attic floor. Exterior walls, those are typically done from the outside. So you can see this on the bottom left. It's a wood shingle sided house. So the way they insulate it from the outside is they actually pop off a shingle. They drill a hole in the wood sheathing underneath that shingle, blow in the insulation, plug the hole, and then reattach the shingle. They can insulate from the outside with most types of siding. Shingle, clapboard, vinyl, clapboard, even aluminum and asbestos, they can insulate from the outside. The only types of siding that they can insulate from the outside are like brick and stucco. The only way to insulate the walls with a brick and stucco sided house is from the inside. So that's something that if you have those types of sidings and you schedule an assessment with the energy auditor, they'll kind of go over what's involved. Going from the inside is not ideal. It's much easier to go from the outside because it's very much less invasive than going from the inside. And then at the bottom right of this slide, you can see this is what it looks like when everything's been reattached. So in most cases, you can't really tell that anyone's even been there and done any work on the house. So, so these are the examples that I mentioned earlier. So this was a 3-family house in Somerville. Because it was a 3-family house, the owner was able to insulate it for free. So this is a typical, Boston area home. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with this, but in this case, there was no insulation in the walls, no insulation on the 3rd floor or the attic areas. So the contractor was able to go through and insulate basically the whole thing top to bottom. And the total cost for the whole building to insulate was $22,000, and Eversource covered the whole thing. So it was free, for the owner to insulate that. And they estimated the savings to be about $1,300 per year. So here's an example of like an owner occupied single family house. The total cost, this is a Cape style, so there's like knee wall cavities, attic areas, that sort of thing. They insulated just the 2nd floor, I believe. But anyways, the total cost was $4,900, and then Eversource covered $3,800. So it was only about $1,100 to insulate the whole 2nd floor, and the savings was about $900 per year. So the paybacks, even if it is like if you are paying 25% of the cost to insulate in a single family owner occupied house, the payback is usually within 2 to 3 years. Just because, the savings you get from insulating, the savings on your heating and cooling costs, it's going to pay for itself relatively quickly. One of the major things that, especially in the Boston area, that we see, or anything that like prevents us from insulating. So the biggest thing is going to be old wiring. There's some info on the next slide, but there are incentives to like either upgrade old wiring or remove asbestos material, or like if there's carbon monoxide issue or something like that, there's rebates and stuff for fixing that too. So let me go to the next slide. These are the three major barriers that we see. So if we go into a house where the house needs insulation, but one of these three things are present, then we can't insulate the house until these barriers are cleared. So knob and tube wiring is the biggest barrier. So a lot of homes that were built between 1900 and 1930 or so have at least, you know, at one point in time had this type of wiring. This you can't actually add insulation on top of this type of wiring because it's designed to dissipate heat. So you get you know, if you cover it with insulation, it could be a fire hazard. So we need to make sure that all of this type of wiring is inactive, and if it is active, there's incentives to upgrade it. In most cases, you know, within the past 100 years, a house that may have originally had this type of wiring, in most cases, it's been updated. They're like asbestos, so that vermiculite one in the middle, that's an old type of insulation that sometimes contains asbestos. So we have like we can't insulate any houses, any attic areas until that vermiculite is removed. So, you know, we have incentives for removing that. If any of that is present, that's pretty rare. That's most likely in like 1950s, 1960s homes. That's where you see it the most. And even if you do have that, doesn't necessarily doesn't mean you have asbestos. But the utilities don't allow any insulation work to be done until it's removed, whether you've had it tested and it contains asbestos or not. The utilities still require it to be removed. And then the last thing, typically as part of the energy assessment, they do a safety test on the heating and hot water systems. If there's any issues with like those systems not drafting out of the chimney properly, or if there's high carbon monoxide in the flue pipe, they can't insulate until that's taken care of, because they don't want to make the house tighter if there's any possibility of carbon monoxide leaking into the house from the heating or hot water systems. So there's incentives to update that as well, if that tends to be the case. All of these things, depending on the age of the house, all of these things are relatively rare. So it's very unlikely that you'd have to go the next step and update the wiring or update the, you know, remove the asbestos or anything like that. But if you do have to go that route, there's, you know, there's help available, incentives and that sort of thing. So, but like I said, in most cases, most houses we go to, we make the recommendations for insulation, and there's nothing stopping us from doing that. The other thing that's available, and I'll go over the rebates. So this is for if you decide to upgrade. The biggest thing is going to be heating and cooling, but also if there's any costs for the insulation, hot water systems, windows. If you want to update any of that, like I mentioned before, there's a 0% interest loan in addition to rebates. So, I mean, depending on if you have an energy assessment, depending on what the energy auditor finds and recommends, there's kind of a whole bunch of different options. Currently there's rebates for, you know, gas boilers, gas furnaces, heat pumps. The rebates will be changing in August. Actually, they're getting rid of all natural gas rebates. It'll only be for heat pumps. So I can talk about that more in a little bit as well. And then these are the list of rebates that are available. And as I mentioned, those the oil and gas rebates are and propane rebates, all fossil fuel rebates essentially, will be phased out by August of this year. So if you do want to upgrade your heating or hot water systems and you don't want to put in a heat pump, then I'd recommend reaching out to Mass Save soon. Otherwise, you might not be able to get a rebate. And then there's rebates for appliances and that sort of thing as well. And I mentioned the heat pumps. If anyone's not familiar with heat pumps, the most common one you'll see is the mini split. That's this kind of rectangular wall unit. But basically, if you do decide to update, they do heating and cooling. They're electric, but they're not like electric baseboard or electric resistance like the older electric systems. They use about a third of the cost compared to electric baseboard for heating, and they use about a third of the cost compared to like a window air conditioner for cooling. And the rebates are huge, so it's a $10,000 rebate. Depending on the size of the house, I mean, I've seen a lot of cases where if, especially a landlord, if they decide to put in heat pumps in a 3-family, and each unit is only about 1,000 square feet, it usually doesn't cost much more than $10,000 to install a heat pump per unit. And like a 3-family, for example, is eligible for 3 separate $10,000 rebates. So yeah, a lot of people have been able to install heat pumps and get pretty much the whole thing fully covered. For bigger homes, for 1,500 square feet or more, the cost tends to be a bit higher. I mean, especially with 2,000 square foot homes, 3,000 square foot homes, the cost can be closer to like 20K, but you'd still get like a $10,000 rebate on that. Yeah, and the program itself, I mean, with the incentives that are available, with all the recommendations, if you update heating, cooling, hot water, if you insulate the house, you do see some benefits. Energy usage is the biggest thing, but also typically the house tends to be more comfortable, particularly with the insulation, and there's other benefits too, ones that you might not see immediately, but like if you are renting a house, those tenants tend to complain less about heating costs and that sort of thing, and they tend to stay longer and renew a lease if they're comfortable during the winter, and the property value tends to increase as well. A lot of people nowadays are looking for efficient homes, and that this program is designed to make the homes more efficient. So here's that how to participate slide again. I would recommend writing down this number. I think it will be shared as well. I'll share some contact info, but yeah, to schedule an assessment, I mean, that's going to be the first step for anybody, whether you have like a rental property, or if you want to do your owner occupied home, or even if you have like a business, a commercial building, or like a large multifamily building. If you call this number, they'll point you in the right direction to get scheduled. And like I said, they do residential buildings, commercial buildings, and then larger multifamily buildings. All that's addressed through the Mass Save program. The only thing is there are different companies that do different types of buildings. So for example, my company, Clear Result, we do all the residential, one like single family homes, as well as 2 to 20 unit multifamily buildings. Anything larger than about 20 units is typically taken care of a different company, Rise Engineering. And then commercial buildings, I think CET does those. But like I said, if you just call this number, they will assign you to the right company to, to assess your property. And again, this is the number. You can also go to masssave.com. All that info is on there. All the information about rebates and stuff is on there too. But a lot of the rebates you can't apply for until you've had an assessment. So yeah, like I said, just call that number, schedule an assessment. Usually you can get an assessment within a couple weeks, and then you're good to do whatever you want to do after that. If anybody does have any questions like about their property or anything after this meeting, my email is there. Feel free to reach out. I won't necessarily be able to schedule you. Most of the properties I do are 5+ unit buildings. So I'm kind of booked out with those, but yeah, if you just have a question about anything regarding the Mass Save program, that's my email. And that concludes the presentation. Let me.
We can ask question now.
Yeah.
You can ask questions. Let me stop sharing my screen, or at least trying to get the Zoom back up. I don't know where it went. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Can they question now?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question now?
Yes.
Okay, I have two questions. First of all, thank you for your presentation. Very clear. I have done a Mass Save 10 years ago, and I just want to find out that on this Mass Save, we also saw on TV about Eversource, a similar program, and I also get a lot of mail from Homeworks. What are the three difference here?
Yeah. So Eversource, like I said, the Mass Save programs, it's not a company. Mass Save is not a company. It's a program, a fund that's set up by the utilities. So Eversource and National Grid, they're basically running the Mass Save program. My company, Clear Result, we're the main vendor. So we are the ones, the utilities contract us to perform assessments, process paperwork, basically run that whole side of the program. There's also, even though we're the lead vendor, there are also smaller companies that are called home performance contractors, HPCs. Homeworks is an example of one of those. There's also Nico and Moonworks, but basically those are smaller companies. A lot of times they will do, if they're like an HVAC company, they will also do like energy assessments, and theoretically there's no difference in the assessment between vendors. So if you have a smaller HPC, which, like I said, we're the lead vendor, we do about 80% of all energy assessments, and then the next 20% is taken up by those smaller HPCs. The assessment shouldn't change, and the recommendations or anything shouldn't be different between Clear Result or any of the smaller companies. The only difference tends to be like Clear Clear Result, as the main vendor, we're not allowed to do any of the insulation work or the HVAC work or anything in-house. So for the insulation work, you know, we work with a list of insulation contractors. There's about 150 that you can choose from. For the HVAC work, there's I think at this point like 600 or 700 contractors that you can work with. So like all of that is not done by Clear Result. Homeworks, for example, they do everything in-house. So if you have an assessment with Homeworks, they'll be the ones that do the installation work. They'll be the ones that do the HVAC work if they make that and you decide to, you know, move forward with that. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. The only benefit is with the lead vendor, you just have more choice on HVAC contractors and insulation contractors.
So just to be clear that, let's say step one, we should call Massey, we should call you, or we should call Eversort. It's a step one.
Yeah,
Who
so
do we call?
the step one, I'll share this PowerPoint with everyone too. But yeah, if you call the Mass Save number, if you go to the Eversource website and you say, you know, you click on I want a home energy assessment, it'll direct you to the Clear Result phone number to call. If you go to the Mass Save website, you can also look at the list of those smaller companies. They have them on there too. So if you don't want to use Clear Result and you want to use somebody like Homeworks, that info is on the Mass Save website too.
So we can call you, in other words, right? Is that right? Or
Yeah,
your company?
Yeah,
Your
if you
company
call-
do 80% of the assessment work, so we can just call you directly rather than go through Massave or Eversource. Is that correct?
Yeah, and because yeah, you can call like that number that I listed. That would be the number to call to schedule an assessment. But yeah, anytime you see like a billboard for Mass Save, or even if you get in the mail, if Eversource includes like a little flyer that says get a home energy assessment through Mass Save, that number that's listed there is Clear Results number.
I see. I have a second question. I don't mean to have all the question. You mentioned about heat pump, and you mentioned about $10,000 rebate, up to $10,000 rebate. And then if you have to do a whole house, then the 10,000 rebate is not going to cover it. Can I just do one room, or one big room, or two big room, and then try to maximize the rebate and up to 10,000? I don't want to do the whole house. Can we do that?
So the $10,000 rebate is only for the whole home. If you install heat pumps to fully heat and cool the entire house or the entire unit, if it's a multifamily building. If you want to do like a smaller single room or you know, couple of rooms with the heat pump, there are still rebates available. The rebates are a lot smaller. They're only $1,250 per ton, and tonnage is the size of the system. So you could really expect to get anywhere between like $2,500 to $3,800 worth of rebates if you do a partial home heat pump installation. So that 10K is only for the whole house.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Michael, for the home no whole house no whole home rebate, I know it's a cover for the heating system. Does it cover air conditioning?
Yeah, so that heat pump system does heating and cooling. So yeah, if you install a heat pump, whether it's like I pointed out the mini split, those are the ductless wall units, those do heating and cooling. There's also what's called a central heat pump, which is basically like a ducted furnace with HVAC, you know, and ductwork in the attic or the basement. That's a heat pump that would be eligible for the 10K rebate as well, and that does cooling.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Any question? 还有没有别的问题啊？No?
Oh, hi. I was asked to share my experience because I had used MassSafe a few years ago. And first of all, thank you for the speaker, Michael, for a very clear presentation. It was in the winter of 2016 to 2017, when I just finished renovating some of my part of my house, and I decided that I should have new insulation in the attic. So I reached out to MassSafe, and the first people who came were, I believe, it's independent contractor from MassSafe. It's called Clear Result. And they did the energy assessment of the entire house. When they were here, they replaced all the electric light bulbs. They replaced the thermostats, and they did the draft test to see if there are draft places in the house, and then they sealed all the doors, exterior doors. They sealed them, and actually the draft test was the report was pretty good. But anyway, so the next thing I wanted to do was to replace the insulation in the attic, and so I selected another independent contractor from the long list of contractors provided by MassSafe. And they came and they, first of all, what the Clear Result did were all free. And then the insulation, because I think the MassSafe rebate would cover the standard process, but I wanted to have all the old ones removed because the old ones I think was dirty and it was not effective. So that's an extra cost to remove and dispose of the old insulation material. So that was an out-of-pocket expense to me. But I believe the rest, the placing the new insulation material was all covered by MassSafe. So that was pretty good. But subsequently, the next year, I installed the central air conditioning, but I didn't realize whether MassSafe would cover that or not. That was totally out of pocket that I paid for. So that's my experience. I think everybody should go through this energy assessment, which is good for the usage, energy usage. That's it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and thank you also for bringing up the fact that in most cases, when we recommend insulation work, if you already have insulation in your attic, in most cases, we recommend just leaving that as is and then adding additional insulation on top of that. Mostly because even if it's older, in general, old insulation doesn't go bad or anything, it's still doing its job. So even if it's 60-year-old insulation, adding insulation on top is typically okay. The only times you want to remove insulation is if you're concerned about like moisture had gotten in there and you don't want to trap any moisture, or if you've got like a rodent problem or something like that, and you think there's mice or squirrels or something in the attic, then ideally you'd want to remove the old insulation. That's not covered through the program. Typically we either recommend you do it yourself, or hire someone to do it yourself, or the insulation contractors can remove the insulation through the program. It's just not covered through the program. Essentially not cover that 75% or not cover that 100%, which it which the actual installation work is. So yeah, it's like I said, in most cases, if you leave it there, that's the best route. But there are situations where, if you remove the installation.
Yeah, my situation was that because I had at one point I had some bat came
Mhm.
into the attic and they left a lot of mess. So I just didn't want to, I just want to all clear it up, clean it
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, they should have mentioned during, the energy assessment, if you mentioned that you wanted to remove the insulation, that, it would have not been covered. But yeah, the re-insulation. So even if you do remove the insulation, re-insulating to the recommended depth is what would be covered through the program.
Yeah, I think I definitely had enough thickness or depth of the material. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else have question? Okay. All right.
Could you tell us how? I think now we know you, but how you compare with one must save agent with another must save agent? If you want to make a selections, what do you look at?
I mean, like I said, theoretically, each company and, even each individual energy auditor should be making the same recommendations, and the program's going to be the same no matter what. There's always the option, if you're not sure, like if you do hire a company, or not hire a company because it's free, but if you decide to use a company for a mass save assessment, and then you weren't sure that you got the full effect of the mass save program and you want to switch, you could always switch. The program allows switching from one energy auditor company to the other. So yeah, I mean, really the most important things is make sure that the insulation was looked at, the heating systems were addressed. In general, unless it's newer construction, if the house was built in the mid 90s or afterwards, and there's, like, for example, if there's no attic in the house, if it's all cathedral ceilings, and it was built in the 1990s, a lot of times there's nothing we can do on the insulation side of things. Also, if the house has gone through the mass save program before, there's usually no recommendations when it comes to insulation. There's also, like, kind of limitations. So if you have drafty doors or something like that, and everything else is fully insulated, we wouldn't be able to send a contractor to just put new weather stripping on doors, because the project would be too small. So there are limitations when it comes to, like, how big the insulation project has to be. Certain types of insulation, like we don't do spray foam through the program. So if you were looking to spray foam your attic rafters, there's nothing through the program for that, unfortunately. So yeah, I would say, like, schedule an energy assessment. I would say in general, like, you'll probably be pretty aware of how good the energy assessment is. Sometimes it may be quick, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was rushed or anything. A lot of times it's just if it's only an attic or something like that, that's what they'll check out. So yeah, and if you're really concerned, or if you have any questions about an energy assessment you had, you could reach out to me too.
Another way, yeah, you can always referral by people well. Then yeah, they had someone the service before. That would be great. That's the way I always do. Yeah.
Yeah, and that applies to like not only for an energy assessment, but also for any HVAC work, any installation work. We usually do recommend reaching out to friends and family and colleagues and that sort of thing if they have any recommendations on that, if they recommend a specific contractor.
How often we can have Marseille come to look at the house? Every couple years?
Yeah, so you're eligible every 2 years for a new assessment. Usually after about 2 years, there's not much that, well, there are things that change, the program and the rebates and everything are changing all the time. But a lot of times 2 years, there's not much that changes within 2 years that would necessitate like a new energy assessment. So it's, even though you're eligible for one every 2 years, it doesn't make sense to get one every 2 years on the dot. It's mostly like if you want installation work, you can get an assessment, get the installation work done, and then if 3 or 4 years later you decide that you want to update your HVAC, reach back out to Mass Save. And sometimes if nothing's changed since the last assessment, they don't even need to come back out and visit the house again. They can just send you all the applicable rebate information. But it's more of like a case-by-case basis. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend getting an assessment just because you can. It's for the first time, definitely get it just because you can, because you never know what your house has for efficiency, insulation and HVAC and that sort of thing. But after that, it's really mostly just using the program. Once you have the first assessment, you also have a point of contact with the energy auditor. So you can 3 or 4 years down the line, if you want to update something, just reach out to that energy auditor or the Mass Save program itself. And then we have all that information on file. So we can get you what you need.
So after I join the program, say you identify a bunch of things I need to do. And so I of course, I couldn't afford to do everything one time. So I could come back next year, the year after, and you already have the assessment. So you have a contact point, we can contact to get it done, right?
Yeah. And the major thing is you can basically pick and choose whatever you want to do after those recommendations are made. Like if you just want to update the insulation, you can just do that, and you don't have to do anything with the heating system or anything like that. The only thing just to keep in mind is that the rebates do change every year, depending on what's available for funding. Like for example, 3 years ago, the heat pump rebates were only in the range of like $2,000 to $3,000, and now they're $10,000. And then, like I mentioned during the presentation, natural gas, oil, propane, fossil fuel equipment, there are rebates for that now, but those are being phased out by August. So the rebates change. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. If you have an assessment, you get recommendations, but you don't act on them right away, the rebates might be a little different the following year.
Could you tell me your relationship with state government as well as with the utility company? How this work out?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the Mass Save program, it's run by the utilities, but essentially the state requires the utilities to run this program. The utilities do benefit, the less energy, the less gas and electric that you use, the less demand there is. And the less infrastructure needs to be considered and built, by the utilities. So that's it does save the utilities on that end. But the state of Massachusetts is really the one that sort of forces the utilities to have a program like this, to put all this funding towards it. The utilities draw up a 3-year plan every 3 years, detailing what the program will entail for the next 3 years, what funding will go towards what rebates and incentives and that sort of thing. That 3-year plan is then reviewed by the state and then approved or denied if they think it should incorporate something else. So the state has a lot of involvement in the program, even if they're not the ones actually running the program, if that makes sense.
So this utility company together has something to run the program.
Yep. So all the National Grid, Eversource, and all the other smaller like Berkshire Gas, Unitil, they're all the ones that are kind of running this program.
So
the state just approves it.
this is an organization or this is a committee to run this program?
For the Mass Save program, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an organization. It's a collaborative. So it's there is no company that's Mass Save. It's like I said, the utilities and then the contractors like Clear Result, which carry out the program. So yeah.
Okay. Suppose I get a rebate. Who's funding the rebate? The state or the utility?
So it's the utilities, and it's from like it's a combination of like state funding that goes towards this program, as well as that energy efficiency charge on your gas bill and electric bill that you pay every month, which it only ends up being,
Oh, I see.
yeah, $2 or $3 a month, but all that goes towards the Mass Save program. So partially funded by you, who pays the gas and electric bill, and partially funded through state funding as well.
And who approves?
What's that?
We approve how
Who
much
approves the program or the rebates?
the rebate? For example, you have the right to say how much rebate I'm going to get, or there's rules you just apply, or
Yeah, so I mean the rebates are set every year. So you can, if you go to the Mass Save website, there's a list of all the rebates for heat pumps and appliances and everything. For example, the utilities originally didn't plan to have a $10,000 rebate for heat pumps, but the state rejected their proposal, which was supposed to be a smaller rebate for heat pumps, and made them increase the heat pump rebate. That was back in 2021. So yeah, it's the state that essentially has the final say in the approval of the program.
I think they have their regulation, how much is a heat pump, and once you file the paperwork, and there's someone work in the Mass Save program, they decide, they have an inspector have to come over to inspect, then file paperwork, and then another side, like underwriter, gonna decide how much you can get it.
Yeah, and you'll know how much you'll get in rebates. It's not decided afterwards. It's more of like, if you install a heat pump system, for example, as long as it meets that minimum efficiency that's listed on the rebate website, and all that information is available on the Mass Save website. As long as you know that your equipment is going to qualify for the rebate. Once you apply for the rebate, they'll approve that $10,000. So you'll know how much before you even, install any equipment or anything. If you have quotes from plumbers or HVAC companies, you should be able to know how much you're getting for a rebate, even before installing the system.
That sounds interesting. Yeah. Thank you very much for the information for us.
Yeah, and I think if nobody has any other questions, like I said, my email I included in the PowerPoint. I'll have Mr. Tang share everything, my contact info. So if you do have any questions, you can reach out, or if anybody who's not on the call right now has any questions, they can reach out. Email is typically the best way to reach me. And then, like I said, that Mass Save phone number, that's going to be what you want to schedule the assessment. And I really if you do have any questions, feel free to ask me, but scheduling an assessment, that's kind of the first step, no matter what you want to do, whether you just want to find out if your home is more energy efficient or needs more to make it energy efficient, or if specifically if you want to install a heat pump, or specifically if you want to insulate your house. That number is going to be the first step, no matter what.
Okay, so which area do you cover? The entire Massachusetts?
So I do greater Boston, but I only do, in most cases, I only do multifamily, like 5+ unit buildings. I used to do 1 to 4 family buildings, and actually I'm going to Judy's house on Friday because I was already there 3 years ago or so to do an assessment, back when I lived in her unit. So yeah, occasionally I'll do a 1 to 4 unit property, but in most cases I do 5+ unit buildings. Yeah, so that's the other important thing is if you call that number, depending on the size of the building, depending on if it's a condo or a single family, or even like a unit in a multifamily building, if you reach out to that number, they'll assign you to the right company and the right energy specialist, an energy auditor. That's
okay. So that number is a general number. So we may not reach you.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't reach me. You would reach Clear Result. We have a call center that handles all the inbound calls. I would recommend calling that number even if you're not sure what type of house you are or property you have, because they can look it up on the gas and electric company's database and point you in the right direction on where to schedule an assessment. But for typical single family homes or smaller 1 to 4 unit properties, or even like 5 to 20 unit buildings, that's the number you call to schedule an assessment. And even if they can't schedule you, they can still let you know who to call to schedule the assessment. So yeah, I would say in any case, just call that number if you're interested in scheduling an assessment.
Michael, are you covering the Boston area still or not?
I'm still in the Boston area, but I no longer do the single family houses that I used to.
What about a multi-family house? Are you covering?
Yeah, I do multifamilies. I'm mostly assigned to like 5 unit to 20 unit buildings, and working with the property managers to do the whole building or the whole complex if it's like a condo complex. But yeah, I typically don't do the single family houses or even like the 2 to 4 family houses anymore.
You do condos? No?
Yeah, I mean, the Mass Save program does condos, but it wouldn't be me that assesses condos. Typically, like I said, unless it's a 5 to 20 unit condo building.
So why you don't do the single family anymore?
Yeah, me personally, sorry. The Mass Save program does, but
Oh, no. Why you don't do it?
I just, it's a different department that does single family, and I used to be in that department, and just now I'm in a new department with the same company.
That's your choice or that's their assignment?
Yeah, no, that was my choice. I basically upgraded, chose to work with the larger complexes as opposed to the single family ones, just for a change of pace, because I was doing single family homes and smaller multifamily homes for 8 years before switching to these larger buildings and complexes.
So we have a single family, so we'll have to call that number and
Yeah.
assign someone. Do we have a choice? Can we request which company we like to work with?
Yeah, I mean, if you call that number, you will reach Clear Result. But if you want to request a specific company, say like Homeworks, that was mentioned before, if they do a lot of Greater Boston, if you wanted to work with them, you can just let the Clear Result call center know that you want to work with Homeworks, and they would send you their info, as well as they typically send the lead over to Homeworks and let them know that you're looking to work with them. So if you don't have a specific request for a company, it'll be Clear Result that does the assessment. And like I said, we do 80% of the assessments throughout the state. But you do have options when it comes to that as well.
So if people want to ask you more questions, can they contact you somehow or this?
Yeah, I'll give you my email to give to everyone.
Okay.
I won't necessarily be able to schedule them because most people are probably going to be either in single families or smaller multi-unit buildings, but I can still answer their questions and point them in the right direction, and discuss any questions or comments they might have.
That's great. So I think you will be willing to share your slides with everybody too.
Yeah, I'll send you. I updated the PowerPoint, but I'll send it to you, and you can give to everyone.
Yeah.
And my contact info as well.
You could send us the PDF if you.
Oh yeah.
Either way is fine with us.
Yeah, PDF makes sense.
Already have information, yeah, contact information, yeah.
Yep, I'll send all that.
You have it, already have it, yeah. Mhm.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. So I should be all set, unless anyone has any other questions. And like I said, if they do have questions, they can reach
Okay.
out. I'll give my contact info to everyone.
Have more questions? Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right. Great, you give, thank you so much, yeah.
Thank you so much. Also, thank you for Judy put this together. Yeah. Thanks.
All right, thank you everyone. It was great talking to you all.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Oh, one more question?
Yeah.
Who, say it again, I didn't see it. It's anybody else? I see the message has question. Who else has question? I didn't.
Oh, did someone else have a question?
Someone asked the water heater is covered. Is it?
Yeah, there are rebates for water heaters. If it's natural gas, like I said, those are going away by August. But yeah, there's rebates for water heaters. And if you go to the Mass Save website, it'll say rebates, it'll say water heaters. You just click on that. The rebates for like for example, a tankless on-demand system, it's only about $450 towards the new tankless on-demand system. There's also rebates for like heat pump hot water heaters. Those are a little bit bigger. Those are in the $700 range, up to $1,500 if you get like the most advanced type of heat pump hot water heater. But yeah, there's rebates for hot water for sure.
Okay. All right, that's it. Okay, great. Thank you again. I think we are done. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, if anyone has any questions, they can email me. I'll make sure to get that info out to everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful.
Have a good one, everyone. All right.
Bye bye.
拜拜。
See ya. OK。那我想我们在那个 announcement 里面都有他的联络资料。Yeah. 那如果大家还有问题要跟他联络的话 ，OK。
Yeah， 那个他说他会把 slide 给我们。
有啊，他已经他
哦，对对。
email 已经有他所有的联络资料。
我可以把 slides 这个寄给大家，我可以把 slides 寄给你们。
OK， 谢谢大家的参与，希望有一些资料对你们大家有益。不错了，这个 program 我自己还有我女儿他们都有用过。那他 replace 那个 不是那个 heater， 他的 process 就是说，你打电话给他们，你说你要 replace 对不对？那他们就会派一个那个 inspector 过来，然后他就填了一份那个 form， 他有 standard form， 就帮你填好，然后他们也知道你可以那个根据他们的 regulation 也知道你可以得到 rebate 多少钱，他就填上去，然后他就 file 了，他 submit 了以后。然后你做好了以后，然后你就把他的 company 啊什么做好以后，然后再送给他，他们就会把钱送给你，开支票送给你。我觉得，
你说，
我觉得他们是一个很不错的 company， 但是你要知道，这个钱都是我们自己，就像他说的，我们那个 monthly payment 都已经 pay 的大概2块多钱，那2块多钱你全那个马州加起来也不少钱了。他的 partially the money is come from there, partially the money come from state too， 所以对我们这些就是 owner 啊或者 renter 都蛮不错的啦 ，you know。还有就是说要根据我自己的经验，就是说你如果要 replace 或 whatever 你的 heater 或者你的旧的那个 heater， 你一定要你先不要 hire 那个 plumber first， 你先 contact Mass Save first， 让他们的 inspector 来，然后 file the paperwork， 然后照相，然后 submit the paperwork， 然后才 get your plumber doing the work， 那你才能够拿到那个 rebate， 要不然你先那个他把你的旧的拿掉了，然后你再去 file 的话，他们就不承认了，你就拿不到这个 rebate， 这是我个人的经验。OK。
那他不做 single family house。
我不知道，他以前在我家几年前住在我家下面一个 apartment， 那是好几年前的事，他现在不做 single family， 但是你需要的话，
嘛，对不对？
请他 refer 一个比较好的给你看他。
他可以介绍，
对对对，我看他要，
我可以找他介绍就是。
我会问他比较他的同事啊什么，right？
嗯，
可以问他，因为他礼拜5要到我家做那个，
哦，哦，
好吗
，yeah，好，谢谢你啊，谢谢。
谢谢你 always big help。还有薛正贤，谢谢啦。
不谢不谢。
OK，
好，
all right，OK，拜拜，谢谢，
谢，拜拜，
拜
拜。
拜。